You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means it is time once again to commence operations here on the old Options Insider Radio Network. Time for the first of our bi-weekly options extravaganzas known around the globe as the Option Block. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the aforementioned network. Glad to see so many of you are having a good time binging on all the on-demand fun. Of course, if you like what you hear on whatever platform you're listening to, keep rating and reviewing. It really does help all the new folks continue to discover the content and keep that party going out there. And of course, if you want more party in your lives, and who doesn't, then head on over to theoptionsinsider.com/pro or for you cool kids /secret clubs. What does that get you? Well, that gets you a whole bunch of things. Get you exclusive pro Q&As, some of the best minds in the world of options and derivatives every week. Exclusive options oddities at the end of the week where we break down all the crazy trades that went up and also probably talk ourselves into some crazy trades as well. Maybe you too, if you want to have fun for that as well as, of course, access to the exclusive pro podcast feed, as well as, of course, giveaways like what we just gave away on the Options Bootcamp last week. Of course, the Pro Trading Crate, as well as, of course, live access to this and every other show we do, as well as, of course, getting your questions bumped to the top of the list. All sorts of fun. And I see a lot of people are taking advantage of that, getting past the bell group. I do a poor job of welcoming all the new people. So welcome to all of you. I should run down a list of all the people who've joined recently, but I always forget to do that. But welcome to all of you folks nonetheless. And welcome to everyone listening out there on demand, however you get it, because it's kickoff time for the network. That means we get to kick things off in high style, the way we have been doing for some time now, which is our infamous Guess That 80s Wrestler via his entrance music, his or her, mostly guys back in the 80s, but some ladies did sneak in. And today we're going back to the guy well. And this was a kind of a top guy of the 80s, mostly face. I can't remember a time when he was a heel. Maybe he was. But this was never one of my favorite guys. And he was a pretty well-known guy. People liked him. I'll give you this hint. I think we've done this for a while now. We have recycled a few of the top guys there during our guessing. I don't believe we've ever done this guy before. That shows how just little interest I ever had. He was fine, competent wrestler, everything. Nothing was interesting about him, at least to my young eyes when I was watching it back in the 80s. You had the Warrior, you had Hogan, you had Andre, you had Macho Man. They all had Jake the Snake. They all had crazy gimmicks, crazy things going on that were captivating to a young eye. And this person was competent. Just nothing that really stood out, at least to me at a young age. Maybe you differ. Maybe you love this person. So we'll see. Can you guess this 80s wrestler via his kind of entrance music? do believe we have a buzz there for this funky beat. I guess you guess. I mean, it's not terrible. I don't hate it. It's a little cooler than I remember it being, but it's all right. Maybe this wrestler is cooler than you remember him being. Mr. Meatball, aka Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. Welcome back to the program. I heard you made a return sojourn to Chi-Town. Hopefully you had a good time. And then B, can you guess this 80s wrestler via his entrance music?
Yeah, I'm debating between two, but I think it is Coco Beware. If it's not, it's Tito Santana.
Oh,
but I think it's Coco Beware.
Doing a double guess. Well, you can only go with one guess. Then we got to let Uncle Mike take a shot. So which is Coco Beware is your guess?
Coco Beware is my guess.
Okay, so Coco Beware is your guess. That is incorrect, is all I will say. Uncle Mike, can you swoop in for the steal? Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management. The floor is open. He foolishly gave you two guesses.
Well, if you wouldn't have said foolishly, I was going to go with somebody else.
Oh, no.
Tito, don't call me Chico Santana.
Yes, this is Tito Santana. Oh, Mark, you were so close. You should never have said. Yes. Tito Santana was very much a top guy in the 80s. He just was never one of my guys. He never was. I don't know a lot of people who were like, ooh, I got to go see that Tito Santana. I know he was big in the Southwest. He was big in all those territories. He was very much kind of a pre-WWEF kind of wrestler. He was kind of just big in the territories. Big guy, could wrestle, could do some moves, nothing super crazy. And that was kind of him. And but that was kind of the way wrestling was until WWF just really took it. Turned it up to 11 with crazy histrionics. Some folks like that old school stuff. Some folks like the new cool stuff. It's all kinds of fun, but either way, that is indeed Tito Santana as we keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the trading block, the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is trading, what is lighting it up out there today. And the moral of the story is not a heck of a lot. We're kind of hanging out one of those mixed to slightly up to slightly down days. Kind of depends where you're looking out there in the market. S&P was hanging out down for a lot of the early session, not a ton, slightly. It is up slightly, right up about a little over 0.1%. The Dow leading the charge to the upside today, up about 0.4%. NASDAQ leading the charge to the dark side, off about 0.3%, or pretty close to it out there right now. So again, very much a mixed day, mixed bag. Depends where you're looking out there, what kind of day you're having. This mixed start to the week still means, though, not a heck of a lot of net movement, which means vol is continuing to come in. VIX, I should say, below the 23 handle when we kicked off the show, about a 22.90. That's down about 0.7 of a point from where it was on Thursday's show. VVIX, the vol itself, at about an 82, down a little over 3, about 3.25 points from where it was on Thursday's show. VXX at about 16.5 now. That puts it down not quite 0.75 of a point, about 0.7 of a point from where it was on Thursday's show. We've got UVXY, was hanging out at about a 9. Now it's about an 8.85. That puts it down about almost exactly half a point, about 0.45 on the week. So ever so perilously close to half a point. SVIX, our inverse friend, again, a little bit frothier out there, was at about a 12.85 when we kicked off the show, I should say. Also, almost half a point mover, about 0.45 to the upside this time. And then UVIX, our levered friend, at about an 8.35 or so. That's down almost 0.7 of a point, about 0.65 to be precise, from where it was on Thursday's show. And not to be outdone, we got our old friend Vol Q out there, aka the at-the-money vol of the NASDAQ, at about 27.5. That puts it down about 1.5 points from where it was this time last week. All right, a lot to unpack. Let's go around the horn. Uncle Mike swooped in there at the last minute and stole it with the help of Mr. Meatball's additional guess and perhaps my prompting. Mr. Uncle Mike, who were you going to guess if you didn't guess Tito Santana? And then B, do you have any enduring thoughts about that? He was pretty much a top guy, just never a super exciting guy, Tito Santana. And then C, what is catching your eye in the markets today, sir?
All right. Well, full disclosure, I was actually going to go with the Magnificent Morocco. It's going to be my guess, but thankfully Sebastian gave it away, so I took it, by gosh. But in terms of some enduring memories of Tito Santana, I remember, so like in their old AWA days, pre-WWF, Jesse the Body Ventura and him did not get along. They had a horrible feud going. So Jesse the Body Ventura would always call him Chico Santana and talk about how he's really just some guy from Chico and the Man, the old TV show from the 60s or 70s or whatever it was. So Jesse did not like him. And then when Jesse was an announcer later in the 80s, I remember him talking about how Tito Santana used to have a taco stand in Mexico and how he sold people bad tacos. So Jesse the Body Ventura did not like Tito Santana because he always called him Chico. So I remember that. I remember the feud he had with Greg the Hammer Valentine. They always kept debating over who is the master of the figure 4 leg lock. And then eventually Greg the Hammer Valentine became the master of the pile driver. So he has some connections from back in the day, but I don't know if he was necessarily a really major name by any means. But in terms of the markets today, yeah, I agree. It's kind of a resounding meh, as Mark would have called it back in the day. And we're looking at the 4,000 level on the S&P. We can't seem to push through there. Looking at the, excuse me, it's like we broke through there last Friday, about an hour into the close, and then again, probably maybe 15 minutes into the close. But throughout the day today, it does not look like we are going to break through it, although it could happen any second. We could break through it, but we've been right on the edge for quite a while today. So I think the 4,000 mental barrier is definitely in effect for right now. Along with the fact that we did have a ginormous rally last week, on the one-day rally that we had on Thursday. And so I do think that what's stopping buyers, is that if you're going to buy a market after a 5% increase, what's the reason to do it? And I think buyers are just kind of waiting for a reason for that to happen. So that's one thing that I'm seeing in the stock world. In the bond world, we did have a rally in bonds based upon the CPI last week. Today, we're relatively flat in the bond world, so we're not getting a ton of movement on there. But once again, when you have a major move like what you had last week, you're kind of going to go into wait and see mode with where you're going. And in the sector world, we do have healthcare catching a little bit of a bid today, but other than that, there's really not a major move in any of the stocks out there or any of the sectors out there of any major significance. In the world of commodities, we actually have my beloved silver. SLV is back above the 20 level. So that's kind of a big deal in that we are getting some movement in the silver world. Crude oil is down $2, almost $3 on the day. We have natural gas, not a big move at all for natural gas, only up 2.6%, which that's next to nothing in natural gas land. And overall, I think the market's kind of taken a break from the big moves that we had on Thursday. So that's what I'm seeing right now. And, Bitcoin's really not very good. That's all.
Well, you had some people join that chorus over this past week. You missed a good TWIFO this last week, Mr. Uncle Mike. You would have loved it. A lot of silver, I should say, on the show last week. So intriguing stuff there. Go check it out if you missed it over there on TWIFO on Thursdays. Listeners, let's head on out now to the Southern Volatility Mecca. Mr. Meatball A, what are your enduring memories of kind of a mid-carder, but I guess a decent mid-carder there, Mr. Tito Santana? And then B, what is catching your eye in these markets today, sir?
Well, Mike, don't look now, but we just crossed 4,000. We're at 4,040 right now.
Whoa!
Yeah. Well, I would say the big thing is S&P futures are holding above 4,000. If S&P futures are going to hold above 4,000, we could probably get a little bit of a lift in the close. As for Tito Santana, kind of the polar opposite of Hulk Hogan is the way I would view him. And you're saying, well, how so? All right. Well, Hulk Hogan, all show, no go, right? The guy was technically, what is the opposite of being proficient? Just
inept.
The opposite of technically sound. He was, not a good wrestler.
Are you saying the leg drop wasn't the most impressive move in the history of the business?
No, the fact that was a finisher is embarrassing, right? Now,
well, don't forget the boot to the face that has to be before
the big boot at least was kind of impressive, right? Because he had a big foot, but the leg drop not nearly as exciting. Tito, on the other hand, was but Hulk Hogan loaded with charisma, right? Loaded with charisma. Tito, kind of the opposite of that. Tito was just absolutely one of the most technically proficient wrestlers that you're ever going to see fight a match. The man knew what he was doing. From a personality standpoint, he was Melba Toast. And I think that was what stuck him to the mid card. I did like him when he was paired with the model Rick Martel. And they had a nice little feud coming out of that, but that is really what I remember about Tito. The flying forearm, not exactly. For a guy that good that he came up with a flying forearm, I would have expected more. Now, in terms of markets, we are above 4,000 as I'm speaking. Volatility is getting absolutely crushed. They are taking it down. VVIX is fighting 80. The market is basically pointing toward, we could melt. And to show you how hard vol has come in, Friday Thursday we moved what, 200 some odd points, a good 5.5%. On Friday, we still managed to rally over 38 points. With the S&P at 39.97, I could have bought the 4,000 calls for Friday afternoon for $38. They are not expecting very much this week. Not exactly sure why, but the market may be in just kind of slow. They may be switching to some sort of slow melting rally mode or something like that. But all the indexes just turned green. The bond market is down. The one thing that's I'm interested in is, why is the dollar up today? Is it just that the sell-off has been so hard, or is the dollar up because the dollar, we're starting to top out? As I view this market, I think that we've got a legit shot at touching the 200-day moving average before decisions are made.
All right. Good stuff. Tell me if you agree with this, going back to the wrestler really quickly. I kind of lump Tito in with that same group as like a Greg the Hammer Valentine. Technically proficient, competent wrestlers, but not super exciting by any means. Maybe Tito a little more exciting than Greg, but that's kind of the bucket I put him in. Do you agree with that?
Yes. 100%.
Yeah, I would very much so. I mean, he really didn't. He did have minimal personality. I mean, he used to he'd talk Spanish in his interviews. I think that was something that he would try and do. But no, I can't say that he wasn't big time, but he was meh.
Yeah, but from a technical standpoint, he was great. He was just very not charismatic, and that was holding him back.
Now comparing,
I bet you if they turned him heel, he could have been good.
He probably could have been all right. Yeah, compare and contrast him, young mind. Now I look at him, then I see Ultimate Warrior come exploding through the cage. Couldn't be a better contrast. Completely crap as a wrestler, but man, what an entrance! Man, he did bowled you over with that instantaneous, ferocious charisma that it was infectious, and you couldn't help but love it. You wanted the Ultimate Warrior wrestling buddy. Nobody wanted the Tina Santana wrestling buddy. So there we go. I digress. I could debate the pros and cons of Tito versus Ultimate Warrior for quite a while. Instead, let's go on out to the market. I can see the people out there right now who are listening who don't like the three of you who we've heard from who don't like. Everybody else loves it. Who don't like that segment are like, come on, guys. All right. We'll get into it more. It's not a ton going on today, listen. All right. The VIX is doing a little bit more than nothing today. The ADV also starting to tick in the right direction. Like I said, we have 484,000 contracts on the tape today, and the ADV back up over 600,000, 609,000 to be precise. SPY looking, like its usual dense, thick self. 4.71 million contracts on the tape. The ADV 8.25 million. That is just a ton of paper. Remains to be seen if we get there today. It doesn't seem like we're trending that. We are north of half of the ADV, obviously, but doesn't seem like we have the momentum. Then again, this day could turn on his head in a dime, and we could see a lot more paper come rolling in. we hang out flirting around these levels, probably not so much. The S, 1.43 million contracts. The ADV, 2.91 million contracts out there. The IWM, 424,000 contracts. The ADV, 968,000. Check out TWIFO from last week if you like all things small caps as well. We had a deep dive into those and some fascinating stuff, research they've done over there in FTSE, breaking all that fun down. And last but not least, we have the Qs. The Qs hanging out at about 1.61 million contracts out there in Qs land. The ADV, 2.86 million. I'm just looking here to see if I can get a sense for where we're hanging out. I got to go find those top days for SPX volume again. It was October 13th. Yeah, 3.875 million contracts for the S. So we didn't quite get there. Some people thought maybe all the madness over the past week, if we would threaten that, we didn't quite get there last week. The low, if you're curious, December 30th, 1.029 million contracts out there in the S. Again, end of year, not a lot going on out there. And the holiday season usually for the S. Let's see what's going on out there from a single name perspective today. And it's kind of, I guess you can call it. It's kind of like Tito Santana. Like, it's fine, but it's nothing to write home about. Microsoft, number 10, 194,000 contracts there for Softy. Softy off nearly 4 handles today, not 1.5%. So they're coming. Like I said, NASDAQ is off today. Obviously, Microsoft contributing to that. So they're coming for some NASDAQ names today. Good old Walmart, number 9. I haven't seen them in the top 10 for a while. Earnings season will bring some fun names into the top 10 every now and then. Walmart, not even 200,000, 196,000 contracts. Walmart off about 1 2/3, or about a little over 1%, about 1.2%, trading a little bit shy of 141 right now. It's had a range of about 143 1/3 on the upside and 139.95, so it just briefly broke through 140. On the dark side, number 8, we're getting to the chip zone early yet again today, listeners. It's NVIDIA. Only 226,000 contracts. NVIDIA up about $1.50, trading 164 3/4 right now. 226,000, that's a whole lot of nothing for NVIDIA out there. So let's roll on. Oh, yes, good old Netflix. Haven't seen them in the top 10 in quite some time. 336,000 contracts for number 7. That's a little bit more respectable. 306.10 is where it's trading right now. Up nearly 16 handles out there today. My goodness. So yeah, the big pop out here for good old Flicks. And then we've got, let's see, number 6. Back to the reigning king of the apes. I was at an AMC theater this weekend checking out the new Black Panther movie. 7 3/4 for AMC right now, up about $0.50. Let's see, AMC number 6, 364,000 contracts for them. Your favorite movie chain / gold miner. Number 5, we got Meta, 378,000 contracts. 115.5 is about where it's trading. 240. Man, this thing has run ever since we did that poll, listeners. We did that poll a week ago. It was hanging around a little bit shy of 100 at the time. It was about 96, I believe. It dipped into the 80s, 88. And now just kicking off that trend of slashing and burning jobs throughout big tech that the street just loves. It's up another 2.4 bucks or 2% today, 115. So it was $88 just about 7 days ago. And now 115.5. So this thing, man, still obviously a pale shadow of where it was, but an impressive turnaround just in the past weeks, up 20% just in the past 5 days. My goodness. All right. Number 4, go back to the chip zone, hanging out where it usually is. This is AMD at number 4, 479,000 contracts, up about 260, trading right around $75 right now. Number 3, maybe hanging out at its new home. Apple has fallen off the throne these days from an options volume perspective. Today, once again, is getting more than doubled out there. Apple, 615,000 contracts. Apple's kind of just, it's literally doing a whole lot of nothing right now. Had a little bit more range earlier in the session, got down to 147.5 and a high of 149.80. So they tried to rally it north of 150. Couldn't quite get there. Maybe this latest leg up can do so. But that's enough for 615,000 contracts, and that's about it. That means the Amazonians taking the top spot above them. Amazon won our poll handily. everyone wanted. I think it was almost 70% of you wanted Amazon over Meta. And yet right now in the week or so since that poll went out, it's been all freaking Meta. Like I said, they're rallying. Amazon doing a little better, back up to about 100 right now, 99.84 to be precise. But my goodness, Meta just outpacing it. But Amazon outpacing it on the options front today, 705,000 contracts. That means you know what the big dog is yet again. It's the old TSLA, 1.31 million contracts on the tape. 195 is where it's trading off about 82 cents on the day. It's had a decent range, though, today. It got up to 195 and 3/4 roughly, and the low was 186 and about a third. So did a lot of love in intraday, even if it's hanging out kind of unched right now. Speaking of the single names and what's driving them out there, let's get out to the earnings front. We still got some big names popping off for you to sink your teeth into, listeners. Tomorrow, the aforementioned Walmart, as well as Home Depot, and then, of course, Krispy Kreme, if you like your donut ball. Wednesday, hanging out still in the big box retailers. We got Target, we got Lowe's, NVDA. They're coming up, as well as Uncle Mike's favorite, CSCO. Thursday, out to China with Alibaba, as well as Macy's. More retailers, Kohl's, BJ's, and I believe our old friend Stone Cold. And then Friday, we've got Foot Locker out there. So hot off the presses for your reading and education and entertainment out there, listeners. We have the earnings move results, earnings season, and earnings trades reports. I'm looking to see if anything was popping off this morning before the bell in the earnings move results reports, listeners, that you folks like to sink your teeth into. Are you a big fan of Frey Battery? They're popping off this morning. Not a lot of names that we usually talk about here on the show popping off before the bell today. X-Ray, one of your favorites, that was popping off this morning as well. But coming up throughout the rest of this week, we do have a lot of big names popping off. Like I mentioned, we have DNUT before the bell on the 15th. Tomorrow, trading 14.25. They're pricing in about $1. In the past, they've moved about $1. So not a lot of extra donut juice for this cycle. Walmart tomorrow before the bell, 142 and about a half is where they were trading. They're pricing in 6.75. In the past, they've moved 4.55. So a heck of a lot of extra juice out there in Walmart. Obviously, there are myriad pressures on Walmart right now. We have inflation, we have wage pressures, we have all sorts of issues, shipping and logistics. So Walmart probably could be forgiven for pricing in a little bit more juice, and that's exactly what they're doing. Let's go out to Lowe's. They're the 16th before the bell, staying in that big box retail. 209 even is where they were trading. As of this report, they're pricing in, get this, listeners, $12.16. In the past, they've moved $6.50. So Lowe's nearly doubling their previous moves in their straddle this cycle. That is a heck of a lot of juice. Let's see if Home Depot is playing ball as well. Home Depot, 15th before the bell. 315 is about what they were trading. They were pricing in 15.25. In the past, they've moved $10.96. So a whole heck of a lot of juice across the board here in these big box retail, especially in those home building focused retailers. Let's go out to Target, more general retail, see if they're pricing in what Walmart is. They're the 16th before the bell as well. 173 and about a third. They were pricing in $14.89. In the past, they've moved $13.39. So $1.50 worth of extra juice. That's substantial. It's not quite as substantial as some of the other names we're talking about here, but still more juice across the board for all of these big box retailers. You agree with that, listener? You think that's overdone? I'm curious. Hit us up. Let us know. We got Cisco, 16th after the bell. About $45 is where they were trading. They're pricing in less juice, $2.37. This cycle, in the past, they've moved $2.63. So interesting. Not expecting a heck of a lot of action out there in Cisco, apparently. NVIDIA, talk about them pretty much every show. 16th after the bell, 163.25 is where they were trading as of this report. They're pricing in $12.86, listeners. In the past, they've moved $7. My goodness, not quite doubling, but pretty darn close as well for NVIDIA. That is a heck of a lot of extra juice. Let's go out to China. This is an area that is just endless vol. Baba, 17th before the bell, 70.75 is where they were trading. They were pricing in $5.75. In the past, they've moved $3.03, so nearly doubling their straddle there as well. Kind of hard to argue that maybe isn't warranted given all the madness we're seeing out there. Man, there is a heck of a lot of extra juice being priced in. And again, looking at the season, that makes sense. Let's go out to Kohl's really quickly as well. Kohl's, another big box retailer. Let's see. They were trading 31.25 when we ran the numbers this morning. they were pricing in, oh, look at this, bucking the trend, a little bit less vol. $2.41 is what they're pricing in right now. In the past, they've moved $2.58. So less vol for Kohl's. Interesting. Kohl's bucking the retail trend out there. Let's stay with retail really quickly. Macy's, 17th before the bell, $21.01 is where they were trading. They were pricing in $2.28. In the past, they moved $1.54. So a fair amount of extra juice for Macy's as well. Let's hit a couple more here. Let's go out to, we haven't talked about AMAT in forever. Good old AMAT. Remember this one, listeners? It used to be a hot name not too long ago. I haven't had a lot of people writing into us about AMAT these days. Applied Materials, of course, 17th after the bell. 110 and about a half, listeners, is where they were trading. They're pricing in $6 and a penny. In the past, they've moved $4.49. So extra juice yet again here in AMAT. And let us not forget about our old friend, Stone Cold, or as the rest of the world knows it, Stone Co. That's nowhere near as fun. 17th after the bell. 11.05 is where they were trading. They're pricing in $1.57. In the past, they've moved $1.71. So less vol for Stone Cold. They are bucking the trend. I tell you what, I lied. One more, listeners. Let's go out to this pandemic favorite. Now, not so much. This is Zoom. They're the 21st after the bell. 88 and a third is where they were trading. They're pricing in $10.01. In the past, they've moved 11.08. So they're pricing in less vol out there in Zuma. Maybe they feel the worst is behind them. Who knows? Interesting stuff out there. The season right now, listeners, it's a certified banger. 124% is where we're hanging out on this season, listeners. That is, I think the technical term is a redonkulous amount of outperformance. Week 2, I've never seen a week as crazy as week 2. 207%. Since we've been tracking these numbers, I've never seen anything like that. So that is certainly crazy. This week right now, hanging out at 111%. Wow, a lot of stuff, a lot of action. Check it out for yourselves. That's beating our average, which is even ticked up a little bit, but still below it at 92% since we've been running these numbers, listeners. Earnings trades, no new earnings trades to report today, but we are still monitoring 77 long straddles and 45 long calendars for your earnings trading pleasure. As we keep on rolling, let's see what fun we can find in the weird times. It is time for the odd block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the odd block.
All right, everybody. Let's get weird. Let's get wild. Let us perhaps even get whimsical. It is time for the odd block, listeners, where we find some weird paper and put it out there for you folks to sink your teeth into. Going to kick things off. Haven't gone out to this name in a while. This is Sirius XM, ticker symbol SIRI. I apologize if I triggered your iOS device of choice. Trading $6.45. Unched pretty much on the day. A year ago, it was trading $6.63. So it's kind of been a heck of a lot of nothing on the year. A few fits and starts. That's pretty much one of the reasons we don't really talk about it on the show that much. It's not really a banger name usually when it comes to options volume or volatility. That said, it has had a few peaks and troughs. It sold off down to $5.98 on January 26th, then back up on February 9th to $6.86. So it had a nice little, pretty much almost $1 run, and then right back down again to $5.97 on February 23rd, an inauspicious day for many reasons, and back up again to $6.69. So it's pretty much bounced between almost $7, $6.88, and about $5.69 on the dark side multiple times. So if you like a nice range-bound name to come in, maybe do some overriding and then scoop and trade in between, then Sirius has obliged you for the better part of this past year. Not a huge range, but if you can make do with that, it's been pretty range-bound, it seems like. And let's see what our Eye of Sauron found out here this week. Looks like perhaps someone thinking that this range is about to be broken. We had pretty sizable 40,000 of the November 6.5 puts going up for 22 cents. Now, this is interesting for a couple of reasons. First off, the size. It's ridiculous. It's a huge print for Sirius XM. The markets, it was 15 at 25 when this went up. This is obviously all opening paper. It's about a 62 vol when this went up. The stock was right about here, 645. So the stock hasn't budged. So they were close to lifting that offer, which makes you kind of wonder, perhaps they are a little bit spooked. This is a weird name to be gobbling up. Again, these are 6.5 puts. So these are at the money. It looks like if they were going a little bit farther out of the money, it might make less sense. But this name has shown a tendency to drop below $6 multiple times this year. So maybe they're betting on a return of that. Worth noting, there was some other paper that went up a little bit later after this print, about a half an hour later. Looks like it was a 6.5-6 ratio put spread, perhaps 15,000 of the 6 puts going up for 7 cents against 10,000 of the 6.5 puts. So maybe they were rolling up some of the 6 puts that weren't really working out there and putting on some more of the 6.5. In which case, that would make a total of 50,000 new opening prints going up on the 6.5 strike. Either way, weird stuff afoot, and a lot of size going up here on this 6.5 put strike in Sirius XM. Mr. Meatball, did you notice these? They're kind of hard to miss. I'm sure you probably noticed these on your big money flow as well. And what are your thoughts as to what they're up to here, sir?
In Sirius, yeah, that has actually been really active over the last couple of weeks. It's seen a big uptick in volume. As I view these are, let me pull these up. These are opening, which I think surprises me.
They are indeed. Yes.
I do note that there are 108,000 open of the NOV 6 puts as well. That appear to be going out worthless. And next week's 6 puts have 25,000 on them. And there's some call action in open in November and NOV 25 as well. So as I said, week, we've seen a big uptick here. So I wonder if something funky is afoot.
It's like a bunch of those NOV 6 puts opened back on August 24th for prices around 38 to 39 cents. So those are probably looking a little bit painful right now when maybe they're trying to get a little bit closer to the fire. I don't know. It's a weird one. They did break through the 6 handle, not much, but they had their chances a few times. I mentioned this thing has been range bound all year, so they had some opportunities. Apparently they did not take advantage of them. Either way, we'll keep an eye on these 6.5 puts, listeners, and see what's going on. But that's not enough funk for you out there today, listeners. I'll take you to another name. We don't normally talk about a ton here on the show because it doesn't put up a lot of crazy funky paper, but today maybe bucking that trend. This is Walmart, like I mentioned, popping off this week from an earnings perspective. You know Walmart, ticker symbol WMT, trading 141.20 or so right now, off about $1.40 or nearly 1%. On the year, it's been a bit of an interesting saga for Walmart. We all know the headwinds that big box retail have faced over the better part of the last couple of years. A year ago, it was trading a little bit north. 146.91 is where it kicked off about a year ago. And then it rallied all the way up to its high of nearly 160 and 3/4. That was on April 21st of this year. And then it sold off hard. They came for it. It went from 147 on May 13th or so down to 119 on May 20th. So they really just kicked this one to the curb. And ever since then, it's been slowly fighting its way back to where it is right now, right around 141 and change out here. So it has certainly clawed its way back from 117 and a quarter, which was its low that is set back in May. But let's see what our Eye of Sauron found out there today going into its earnings. The earnings are coming up this week, listeners. And we've got, looks like a bit of a funky ratio put spread, maybe? It's all kinds of weird, listeners. It lines up not quite 1-to-1, but a bit of a ratio. Also, it all went up late. So it's the best guess as to what they were actually trying to do here, because everything is way dramatically through where the offer should be. But we've got 14,862 of the NOV 131 puts. Again, we're hanging out at 141 right now, so $10 out of the money puts, going up for 78 cents. That would be about 4 cents through the offer. That's about a 66 vol. And at the same time, we also saw not quite 10,000, 9,906 of the NOV 138 puts, also going up, also late, also through the offer. About 11 cents through the offer, trading 267. That's a 66 vol as well. Again, earnings are tomorrow's. This is an immediately pre-earnings trade. Also, interestingly enough, both of these strikes opening. So it's not like maybe it's a roll down or adjustment heading into earnings. Nothing like that. It looks like this is straight up opening 1 by 1.5 NOV put spread / maybe funky stupid. Which, those always bring a smile to my face. Mr. Meatball, do you lean on the funky ratio stupid side? I should say you lean on the funky ratio spread side. What are you feeling for this, sir?
I'm thinking it's a spread, not a ratio spread. That's my feeling on this one. That to me would make the most sense. Wouldn't it make the most sense to you, Mark?
It does, but it doesn't make me laugh as hard as a funky ratio stupid. So I always leave open the possibility of a out of sequence ratio stupid.
It totally could be.
You never know when those ratio stupids are going to strike, listeners out there. But yeah, it probably makes more sense. And given the fact of the way this went up, probably buying 1 and selling not quite 2, 1 and about 1.5 out there. In which case, we talked about these before, listeners looking for a bit of a sell-off out there in the old Walmart, somewhere to the order of somewhere around 10 points going into earnings. We shall see if that pops off. Well, let's wrap things up. Let's go old school. Let's go back to the heady days of 2021, where everyone was loading up on upside calls and cheapy names, and all was right with the world, at least from a stock perspective. The macro rest of the world kind of messed up, but from a stock perspective, things were doing pretty well. Let's go out to Community Health Systems, ticker symbol CYH, trading right now 3 1/4, off about 12 cents or about 3.5% today. On the year, let's see, a year ago, they were trading nearly $15. Actually, they got the $15, 15 1/4, and they closed at $14.70 a year ago. And that was pretty much all she wrote for that one. They've pretty much been selling off ever since. The biggest drop was in April, went from $11.70 down to, by May 2nd, it was trading $7. So they really clipped it then. And it's been pretty much selling off ever since. Got down to its low for the year. Looks like around late October of $1.88. So ever since then, this last month's had a decent pop. It's up 47%, or a little over $1 just in the past month, trading 3 1/4 right now. And you know what, Mr. Meatball? It seems like someone thinks this party can't continue, because they came in this morning and scooped up 4,400 of the D4s. So we're trading 3 1/4, 75-cent out of the money calls, obviously, listeners, for 15 cents. That is a 106 vol. So it's around a $3 name, check. It's triple-digit vol, check. It's someone buying far out of the money calls, check. This has all the hallmarks of 2021 meme stock frenzy paper. So that makes it kind of fun, listeners. Mr. Meatball, sir, what are your thoughts on these? By the way, there are no earnings. The next earnings announcement is on February 15th. So this is just straight up swing for the fences, end of the year rally here in everyone's favorite Community Health. Mr. Meatball, you love these? You piggybacking on these?
You gotta take a shot, right? You gotta spend money to make money, right? How can you lose here? No, not my favorite play that I've ever seen in any way, shape, or form. This stock has just been absolutely toast, but they're relatively inexpensive. So you're looking at a dollar cost, and it's not that high. But no, I do not love the play.
Maybe you go down to the corner 7-Eleven, you buy 4,400 scratchers, and maybe you do a little better. Who knows? It's about the same thing. We shall see which of these plays works out better. I'll tell you what, listen, I'll do it for science. I'll go down to the corner 7-Eleven. I'll buy 4,400 scratchers, and we'll see who does better, me or this person loading up on these lottery tickets to the upside in CYX. Speaking of lottery tickets, Uncle Mike can't stop buying those lottery ticket calls. Let's find out what he's got in store for us this week. It is time for the strategy block.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the strategy block.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the strategy block. A lot of madness unfolding out there. Luckily, we have Uncle Mike to set it all straight for us. Uncle Mike, sir, what do you have in store for us this week?
Well, what I want to talk to you guys about today is another strategy that I think it's important that you know, but not one that I necessarily do a whole lot of. And that is an iron condor. Now, what is an iron condor? Well, an iron condor is something to where you are looking to be neutral. You could be bullish neutral. You could be bearish neutral, depending on how you want to set it up. But it's important that you know what it is and the mechanics of what the actual strategy is. Now, first off, as a quick review, an iron condor has two sides to it. The first side is a bullish put spread. So let's say that XYZ stock is trading at $50 per share. You can sell a 45 put on it and simultaneously buy a 40 put. So that means that so long as the stock stays above 45, your options will all expire worthless. You will initially get a credit, but you still have the obligation that goes with it. But then ultimately, if those options all expire worthless, then you are profitable on that trade. But wait, there's more. Let's say that that's just not complex enough for you. Let's say you want to make more money, but you believe it is going to be kind of range bound in XYZ stock. So simultaneously, what you do is you sell a 55 call and buy a 60 call. So you are simultaneously selling a put spread below the stock price and a call spread above the stock price. And by doing that, an iron condor is born. Now, a couple of things that make an iron condor fairly interesting is that you only have to have maintenance on one side of it. So in other words, let's say that you put on a call spread and a put spread at the same time. You only have to have the maintenance requirement for the higher of the two. So in other words, you can get two credit spreads for the maintenance of one. Heck of a deal, isn't it? Because the reason for that is the fact that it's mathematically impossible for you to lose on both sides of the trade. So that's why brokers only make you have a maintenance requirement for the higher of the two maintenance requirements of the two short spreads. Now, with that being said, this sounds like this amazing, amazing trade. And I often like to think back to the golden age of the iron condor back in 2006. I remember I was traveling the country and just being told in city after city how dumb I was if I didn't do iron condors, how it was just the greatest trade ever, how it's just borderline a license to print money. Well, here's the problem with the iron condor. Yes, it's a good trade. It can be used well, but the problem is that if the market does move, your risk reward typically falls out of favor. So in other words, let's say that you're making ultimately a profit of roughly 10% on your maintenance month in, month out. Well, that's a heck of a deal, isn't it? Because after all, the stock just doesn't have to move that much. Well, it does move that much at times. And when it does move that much, oftentimes months and months of profit are wiped out. And let's be honest with ourselves, it doesn't necessarily have to wait for you to get those profits to wipe out profits. It could wipe out where you go before you actually make the profit. Now, there's debates and strategies for managing iron condors, but the point that I want to make with this is that it's not a strategy that is a set it and forget it and just at the end of the month, cash your check. It's that easy. It doesn't work that way in real life. There's strategies to it, and you have to be prepared to make adjustments or deal with profits and losses, just like any other strategy. So with that is what an iron condor is.
All right, everybody. And now we got a little bit of time left. Let's go really quickly into the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, we're coming up against it. Let's see if we can go through these pretty quickly. Last week, we asked you our question of the week. We asked this question initially back in March of this year, at which point 56% of you said you were bargain hunting. Thought it was a good time to revisit this. Quite simply, with so many factors weighing on markets right now, how are you adjusting your trading style? I'll give you 4 choices: reducing your equity holdings, buying crypto, interesting timing for that one, bargain hunting, so your BTFD, and or hedging your positions. And once again, bargain hunting wins with nearly 36%, a smaller victory from 56 down to 36%. Maybe some of you have been burned by the bargain hunting you did back in March. But either way, bargain hunting still winning, followed by a tie for number 2 with hedging your positions and reducing equity holdings, both at 28.3%. And then bringing up the rear, buying crypto, 7.5%. Fast forward to this week, listeners. And, we've been seeing a lot of love for these new, effectively daily expirations we've got going on out there in the major indexes. Now you got your Mondays and your Wednesdays and it's every day of the week pretty much. You've got an expiration going up in the major indexes out there, and they're proving to be pretty popular. So we thought we'd ask you folks, are you trading these? And if so, why are you trading them? Gave you 4 choices. You're hedging some specific event risk like the Fed. So you want to pick it up just for that day pretty much. Or maybe you're doing just a little bit of some short-term speculation for whatever the driver may be. Or you like to trade one against the other. So maybe you're doing an intra-week spread, maybe like a Monday against a Thursday, something along those lines. Or the infamous other. Let's go around the horn. Let's start with the meatball, sir. Why do you think folks are trading these new effectively dailies in the indexes? Is it for hedging event risk, short-term speculation, intra-week spreads, or others, sir?
It's short-term speculation and for hedging. That's one of the reasons why the VIX, we've talked about this a couple times. One of the reasons why the VIX, I think, has been so muted is that I can go into an option that expires any day in the next couple of weeks and hedge my risk for that day. So that there is value there. And then on the other side, you have a lot. I've been using them for speculation, and it's been highly effective. So I think that there's good reason for these to trade. You can take a position for the day and have nothing overnight. That's pretty darn nice.
Mr. Uncle Mike, same question for you. Have you started playing around in these effectively daily options out here in products like the S and others? And then B, why do you think our audience is trading them, sir?
I have, and I've done it just to if I have primarily what I like to do is just buy them more of the Monday ones just for the weekend. But occasionally, if I'm concerned with an event during the week and I have short premium for a longer period of time, sometimes I'll just buy one for a day or two. So I use them more for hedging my speculative, my short-term, but yet longer-term speculative positions. So that's what I'll use them for. And in terms of why the audience is using them, let's just make them speculators. I'll say that.
All right. It is whipping around because it just went live right before showtime, listeners. Right now, if I freeze it, it's a tie for first place with 40% each for hedging specific event risk, so the Fed and others, and also intra-week spreads, both coming in at 40%, 20% for short-term speculation. No others yet, but again, it just went live a few minutes ago. That'll be our question of the week. At Options is the place to go to find that as we go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block, the portion of the show where we tell you what we're keeping an eye on until our next episode for this show on Thursday. Obviously, a whole bunch of shows in between now and then on the old network. But Mr. Meatball, sir, what are you keeping an eye on in ye old markets until the Thursday episode of the Option Block?
I think you got to watch PPI. That's really what it comes down to. That's the big number this week. Still a little bit of earnings trickle. And then I want to see where you hold 4,000 for the day.
Is inflation suddenly important? I must have missed that memo. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I know. Inflation. It's a thing.
Inflation. Who knew? Who knew out there? Mr. Uncle Mike, same question for you, sir. What are you keeping an eye on until our next episode?
This is the big one. I mean, of course, you also have the PPI, but 4,000 for primarily for myself. It's a key number. 3,900 has kind of been the magnet number over the course of the last few months, it seems, but we'll see if we can hold the big one, 4,000.
The big one indeed, the old 4K. We are holding north of it right now, listeners, and most of the major indices have now ticked ever so subtly into the green, including the NASDAQ, which was selling off at the start of the show. So intriguing what a difference an hour or so makes. Unfortunately, listeners, that music means we're done for the Option Block. But if you need more living in your lives, don't worry. We'll be back in a little bit with the crypto rundown to break down all the madness. And there's a lot of it has gone on in the past week of the world of crypto. Got his buddy Mr. Bill joining us. I believe he's beaming in live from a crypto conference. There should be some intriguing developments going on there. You don't want to miss that. Check it out. And a little bit for all of our live listeners, after the fact listeners, just wait a bit. It'll hit the network, and then it'll be on your device of choice, and you can check it out there. But before we go, let's go back around the horn. Let's go to the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike, sir. If folks want to check out all the goodness in the land of St. Charles Wealth, where should they go? What should they do?
First off, follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW. And also feel free to check out my website, stcharleswealth.com, if you're looking for a financial advisor.
And Mr. Meatball, sir, if folks want some help navigating these volatile waters, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, go to optionpit.com. I'm writing a vol blog every day. It is worth your time. Go and read my VIX Edge blog and all the other great stuff that we put out every day. Optionpit.com. Have a good week, everybody. Trade well.
There you go, listeners. Optionpit.com is the place to go. Got to get on out of here right now. Back, like we said, in a little bit for all you live folks with all things crypto rundown. A lot to sink our teeth into out there. Back again tomorrow for all of you pro folks coming in hot on the old pro Q&A side, listeners, with a whole bunch of fun hanging out there. And then back again on Wednesday for Education Wednesday, Options Bootcamp, Options Playbook Radio. And then back again on Thursday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.